Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the SWAS. Got a loaded college football Friday night. We got 4 games, couple good ones too. Gonna go through all 4 of them in this video. Let's do it.
Welcome to the SWAS. The SWAS. SWAS. Hey, get the SWAS.
First up, we're in the ACC. We got Florida State on the road at Duke. Blue Devils laying 3. There's actually a couple 3.5s out there, but for the most part, it's 3 across the board. Total sitting at 42.5. Let's take a look at the pie charts, and according to this data, action's coming in pretty heavily on the Duke side. Over 75% of the tickets, over 85% of the money, but as I always say, take this data with a grain of salt. So let's get into this matchup, and we should probably pop a Xanax because we're about to talk about the Florida State offense. Wow, what a season. They're 17th in passing frequency, so they have been throwing the ball a lot. The offensive numbers, though, 124th in yards per play, 126th in success rate, 109th in PPA. Rushing numbers, non-existent. This team is 132nd in the country in yards per carry, 110th in success rate per rush, 121st in effective rush. And honestly, they're an offense that drops back to pass a lot. They're not particularly good at that either. 104th in yards per pass attempt, 129th in success rate per drop back. They're going to have their hands full here, because we all expected this Duke defense to take a step backwards. Losing Mike Elko to Texas A&M really hasn't. Defense looks great. They're 13th in the country in yards per play, 29th in success rate. Look at their pass defense. 2nd in the country in yards per pass attempt allowed, 27th in success rate per drop back, 21st in effective pass. This Duke defense looking like it hasn't even missed a beat without Mike Elko. But we do have to mention that we have a quarterback change here at Florida State. Brock Glenn is now the starting quarterback. The era of DJU is officially over. I think most Florida State fans would agree that that's... well, never mind. So Brock Glenn, in his first start, 222 yards, 4.9 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Now, we do have to keep in mind that his only start was against Clemson, one of the best defenses in the country, surely a top 15 defense. So we have to keep that in mind. But on the road in Duke, it's not like that's an easier spot. I mean, Duke might be a top 20 defense themselves. But regardless, when we're looking at these Florida State passing numbers, here are the numbers from the DJU games, weeks 1 through 5, averaging 213 passing yards per game, just 33.1% success rate per dropback is terrible, 6.64 yards per pass attempt. And then we pull up the passing numbers from Brock Glenn's start. Doesn't look that much better. In fact, it's slightly worse. His game was against Clemson, so you can't paint them with the same brush. He's made 1 start against Clemson. That being said, as I just mentioned, on the road in Duke isn't much easier than playing Clemson. Duke's pass defense on the year allowing just 4.8 yards per pass attempt, 36.4% success rate per dropback, 158 passing yards per game. This defense looks excellent. They also have a pass rush, 46th in pressure rate, 15th in sack rate, 21st in pass rush grade. The Florida State offensive line, as I'm sure you've gathered if you've watched any Florida State games this year, it hasn't been good. They're not creating a ton of space in the run game. They're also struggling to protect the passer. They're actually 128th in pressure rate allowed, 82nd in sack rate. So Duke should definitely not have a problem pressuring Brock Glenn in this one. And also, I don't expect him to have any run support. Florida State hasn't had a run game all year, as we were talking about before. On the season, they're averaging 2.24 yards per carry as a team, 38.2% success rate per rush. Under 60 rush yards per game is a laugh out loud bad, and this Duke run defense has been solid as hell all year, allowing just 3.8 yards per carry on the season, 37.4% success rate per run. So this run defense has been very good. As much as I'd love to say, hey, new quarterback, maybe a new energy with the offense, we know this Florida State team has talent. They have like 42 4-star recruits on the team. We know they have talent, so maybe you throw a new quarterback in there, team comes out with a new motivation, new energy. We've seen that before in football. I don't know if this is a spot on the road at Duke here. This defense has looked really good. Granted, Duke hasn't played a ton of super talented offenses, but Florida State is most definitely not a super talented offense. So I expect the Duke defense to continue to look good here. But what about the other side? What about the Duke offense against the Florida State defense? Well, just like the Florida State offense, Duke is a team that wants to drop back and throw the ball. They're 41st in pass frequency so far this year. They want the ball in the hands of their best player, Malik Murphy. You might remember him from Texas last year. He was Quinn Ewers' backup up, transferred over to Duke. He's been pretty good this year, not excellent. It's not like they have a ton of offensive weapons out there for him at Duke. Duke's offense on the season, 83rd in yards per play, just 107th in success rate, 104th in PPA. He really hasn't had any run support, 87th in yards per carry, 123rd in success rate per rush, 108th in effective rush. The passing attack has been okay. 84th, 75th, 65th. So that's what Duke wants to do. They need to throw the ball to be successful. There's not much of a rushing attack here. Florida State defensively, I mean, hasn't been nearly as bad as the offense, but they are slightly below average in terms of the country. I mean, 69th in yards per play, 69th in yards per carry, 93rd in yards per pass attempt. Some advanced metrics still indicate that this is a above average defense based on their talent, but we've yet to really see it. Here are Malik Murphy's numbers on the season. Solid looking stats here. 1430, 6.8, 14 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. The story Malik Murphy has pretty much been, can they keep him protected? When he has a clean pocket, he makes you pay. We saw it clear as day in the Northwestern game. Northwestern was pressuring him all game. Fourth quarter, the pass rush got tired. He had some time to throw. He pieced that Northwestern secondary up. They came back, forced overtime, and won the game. So if you give Malik Murphy a pocket to throw from, he will beat you, but he's definitely struggled a little bit under pressure. That could be a little bit concerning, because if you had to pick one aspect of the Florida State football team that is performing up to expectations, I mean, the rest of the team looks terrible, but one aspect of Florida State that is performing up to expectations this year, it is the pass rush. They're 29th in pressure rate, 10th in sack rate. They can pressure the passer. So knowing that Malik Murphy has struggled when he's received pressure, definitely not a great look for Duke here. That being said, let's give Duke's offensive line some credit. They've done a great job in pass protection this year. They're 5th in the country in pressure rate allowed, 68th in sack rate, 17th in pass blocking grade. That offensive line has been solid in terms of keeping Malik Murphy protected. The problem is, if you look at Duke's schedule, I mean, the only respectable pass rush they've seen is Northwestern, and Northwestern was really giving that offense problems for 80% of that game. The pass rush must have got tired at the end because they stopped getting home, but for most of that game, Malik Murphy was in hell up until about the second half of the fourth quarter when he finally had time to throw. This is coming from someone who bet Northwestern money line in that game, and I was screaming at the TV, where did the pass rush go? But yeah, the only pass rush they've seen that I would call respectable is Northwestern, and they gave them problems. Florida State's pass rush is probably even Northwestern's pass rush is actually pretty good. I would say they're comparable, those two. So I definitely don't like that matchup at all for Malik Murphy and the Duke offense. I will say we've only seen Florida State play one true road game this entire season on the road at SMU. They got cooked through the air by Jennings in that game. 254 yards through the air, 11 yards per attempt, 42.3% success rate per dropback. So the only time we've seen this Florida State defense go on the road, they did not defend the pass well at all. So maybe gives Malik Murphy and this Duke offense some hope, because unfortunately, I do not think he's going to have any run support in this game. Duke hasn't been able to run the ball all season. Just 3.55 yards per carry, 35.1% success rate per rush on the year. Those are some terrible season-long rushing numbers. And look, I mean, it's not like Florida State's been elite against the run, but we have seen them show up. They had a 2-game stretch in week 3 and 4 where they were actually defending the run really well against Memphis and Cal. Other than that, I mean, they have been run on, but Clemson, SMU, Boston College, Georgia Tech, all offenses that are significantly better, significantly more dynamic than Duke's offense. So I don't think the run game's going to be there for Duke. So where does that leave us in terms of placing a bet? Well, I can assure you I will not be betting Florida State here. I made a joke earlier in the season that someone should invent a shock collar that goes off anytime you consider betting Florida State. This is coming from someone that took a couple losses betting Florida State this year. So I will not be betting Florida State. That being said, really don't feel comfortable enough with this matchup for Duke offensively to lay a full 3. So I think the move here would just be to take the under at 44.5. I'm a little worried that both of these teams like to throw the ball, though. If you're betting an under with a low total like 44.5, typically you'd like to see a lot of running. That being said, I think both defenses are going to shine here. Should be a defensive game, a lot of punts. Hopefully turnovers. Don't push this one up over the total, but it'll be under 44.5. As of right now, I don't have a bet on this game, though. Next, we're in the Big Ten next. We got the Ducks on the road in Purdue here. Purdue catching 28.5 or 29, depending on your sportsbook. Total sitting at 60.5 pretty much across the board. Let's take a quick look at the pie charts, and according to the data, action is coming in on the Boilermaker side. Almost 60% of the tickets and almost 60% of the money coming in on Purdue. As I always say, though, take this data with a grain of salt. So let's get into this matchup, and we'll start with the Oregon offense against the Purdue defense. And this might be the most lopsided offense versus defense matchup I've done on YouTube this season. Obviously, I don't do the FCS games. So yeah, I think Oregon's offense against Purdue's defense is the most lopsided matchup I've done so far this season. Oregon is second in OFEI. Purdue 113th in DFEI. So this is a really good offense against a really bad defense. No need to read through all the numbers. You get the picture just by the colors on the screen here. It's a pretty lopsided matchup. Dylan Gabriel has been excellent, as we know. Just under 1,800 yards passing, 8.8 yards per attempt, 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Not a ton of big-time throws down the field. Just a C-plus big-time throw rate. But he's been efficient. He's making the right decisions. That Oregon offense looks good as hell. On the season, they're averaging 302 passing yards per game, almost a 50% success rate per dropback on the year, over 9.1 yards per pass attempt. So yeah, this Oregon passing attack is as good as advertised. They showed us in the Ohio State game. So how has this Purdue pass defense looked in their last few games? Well, next level terrible. They're allowing 328 passing yards per game, 10.6 yards per attempt, almost a 52% success rate per dropback. They've been getting roasted through the air. Nebraska, Wisconsin, and Illinois. Now, Illinois's got Altmaier. Not that these are bad offenses, but none of them are on the same level or even close to the same level as Oregon. So, yeah, I don't expect many stops through the air here. Now, the crazy thing is Purdue actually does have a pass rush. They're 42nd in pressure rate, 40th in sack rate. They actually are capable of getting pressure on the quarterback. The problem is this is Oregon's offensive line, and the talent discrepancy is just, it's too much to overcome. So I doubt we're going to see much pressure on Gabriel, but even if we are, Gabriel's an experienced quarterback. I believe he has the most starts ever in the FBS or something like that. He's super experienced, a guy you trust to make the right decisions, even if he is experiencing pressure. So yeah, like I said, I don't expect to see many stops here from Purdue. And as far as Oregon running the ball, I mean, this should be an all-you-can-eat buffet for the Ducks here. They got off to a slow start, averaging just 3 yards per carry in weeks 1 and 2 against Idaho and Boise State. Look at their 4 games since then. They're averaging 5.6 yards per carry, over a 49% success rate per rush, over 190 rushing yards per game. Jordan James is looking like the man back there, looking like an NFL back. And in case you're wondering how Purdue's defense has looked against the run, if you guessed absolutely terrible, you nailed it. In their last 5 games, they're allowing 6 yards per carry as a team, almost a 48% success rate per rush, over 254 rushing yards per game. That's against Notre Dame, Oregon State, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Illinois. Now, granted, let's give them a little bit of credit. That's a very tough stretch of schedule there, but still, I mean, this is Oregon, so it's not like it gets easier. I mean, this is a tougher offense than all 5 of those. So yeah, don't have a ton of hope here on paper for Purdue's defense. But what about the other side? What about the Purdue offense? Showing us some signs of life last week, right? Played Illinois tough down to the wire. The Purdue offensive numbers don't look nearly as bad as the defensive numbers do. In fact, this team's 42nd in the country in yards per carry, 75th in success rate per rush, 47th in effective rush. They are capable of running the ball. Passing numbers haven't looked great, but we saw a dramatic improvement in that department with the quarterback change. We'll talk about that in a second. Now, they're still outmatched by Oregon's defense, let's be honest. But Oregon's defense not as impressive as far as the numbers go as their offense. 28th in yards per play, 39th in success rate, 59th in PPA. Their defense against the run, 42nd in yards per carry allowed, 43rd in success rate per rush, 23rd in effective rush. Basically, what I'm saying is the Oregon offense, you can make an argument that that's the best offense in college football. I'm just saying you can make the argument. You can't say the same about the Oregon defense. It's a very good defense, but it's not quite the top 5 in the country. It's not quite there. It's a step below that. So maybe Purdue is able to move the ball, maybe move the chains here and there. I mentioned the quarterback change. Hudson Card got hurt. Last week, Ryan Brown got the start, and it's looking like this was the best thing to happen to Purdue football since Drew Brees. Ryan Brown against Illinois last week, 18 of 26, 297 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, passer rating over 203. He was next to perfect in that game throwing the football. For comparison purposes, look at the Purdue passing numbers in the Hudson Card games, in the 5 games Hudson Card played in. 161.2 passing yards per game, just 37.1 success rate per dropback, 6.08 yards per attempt. Look at the Purdue passing numbers in the Ryan Brown game. 297, 11.4, 48.1% success rate per dropback. Now, it's just one game. Let's not go crazy here. Obviously, Illinois didn't have film on the kid. It was his first career start, so they had the element of surprise too. But we've seen this before. A change in the quarterback position brings a new energy. Everyone starts playing with confidence. I'm not saying that's what's happening. I'm just saying we've seen that before. At the NFL level, at the collegiate level, we've seen that before. It's not crazy. And let's be real, this Oregon pass defense is looking a little vulnerable. In the first 4 games of the year, it looked elite, allowing just 5.05 yards per attempt, 29.3% success rate per dropback, under 155 passing yards allowed per game against Idaho, Boise State, Oregon State, and UCLA. None of those teams can really throw the ball. In their last 2 games against Michigan State and Ohio State, Ducks were looking a little vulnerable to the pass here. 9 yards per attempt, almost a 50% success rate per dropback. They were getting thrown on. Now, that's Aiden Childs, one of the most highly touted recruits in the country, and it's Ohio State, one of the best offenses in the country. So obviously not comparable to Purdue, but hey, it's something. This Purdue passing offense looked good last week with the new quarterback coming into this one with some confidence. Friday night at home, this is their Super Bowl against Oregon, a relatively meaningless game for the Ducks coming off their biggest win of the season. I'm just saying there's a path. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying Purdue's going to throw the ball all over the Ducks here. I'm just saying there's a path. Now, what they're going to struggle with is the Ducks pass rush, because Oregon can most definitely rush the passer. They're 5th in pressure rate, 38th in sack rate, 15th in pass rush grade, and Purdue's been struggling to keep their quarterback protected. 121st in pressure rate, 127th in sack rate. So that is what we call a mismatch. The Oregon pass rush against the Purdue offensive line, that's going to be a situation for sure. There's nothing on paper to indicate Purdue should even compete in that battle, but as I always say, college football games are not played on paper. Friday night, maybe Purdue comes to play. Maybe the offensive line has the game of their lives. Now look at the left side of this graphic. Something Purdue's offensive line has done a solid job of, creating space in the run game. 12th in line yards, 34th in stuff rate. We saw this Purdue run game with a whole new energy last week with the new quarterback, averaging 7.47 yards per carry against Illinois, 59.4% success rate per rush, 239 yards on the ground in the game. Here's the problem. Illinois has been struggling to defend the run all year. That does not describe Oregon. Also, in the 2 games before that, Purdue couldn't run the ball at all against Wisconsin and Nebraska, just 2.7 yards per carry as a team. And if you look at the Ducks numbers against the run, I mean, it's only the Boise State game early in the year with Genty. That was the only game where a team was able to run the ball on Oregon. Not even Ohio State could really get the run game going on the Ducks. So just 3.07 yards per carry allowed in their other 5 games. But like I said, Friday night, huge game. The place is going to be going crazy coming off the game with the new quarterback. There's a new energy. Oregon coming off the biggest win of the year. I don't know. I'm not laying 29 with the Ducks. I'll tell you that. Am I going to take 29 with Purdue? Give me Purdue plus 29 or pass. I'll let you know on the live show if I actually bet it. As of right now, it's just a lean. It sounds crazy to even say. Purdue plus 29 or pass next game. Next up, we're in the Big 12. We got Oklahoma State on the road at BYU here. Cougars laying 9.5. I actually see a couple 9s popping up. It's been at 9.5 for a few days now, but I do see a couple 9s. Total sitting at 52.5. Take a quick look at the pie charts, and according to this data, tickets coming in about 50-50, money coming in heavily on the BYU side, over 90%. According to this data, which you should take with a grain of salt. So let's get into this matchup, and we'll start with the Oklahoma State offense. As I'm sure you've heard, not exactly going to plan this year. They've been throwing the ball a lot. Not exactly what we envisioned for Oklahoma State's offense this year with Ollie Gordon. They're actually 6th in pass frequency. The passing numbers do look all right. 44th in yards per pass attempt, 59th in success rate per dropback, 16th in effective pass. Now, a lot of that was racked up in the 3 first games of the year. The production in the passing attack has fallen off a bit. We'll get to that in a second. But I think the most surprising thing here, when we're looking at Oklahoma State's offensive numbers, the lack of a run game, especially considering they came into the season with a Heisman hopeful at running back. They're just 117th in yards per carry, 131st in success rate per rush, 124th in effective rush. And the reason that's significant here, on the road, Friday night at BYU, this defense has been shockingly good. And I say shockingly because BYU had arguably the worst defensive front in the Big 12 last year. This year, they're 8th in yards per play, 27th in success rate, 20th in PPA. Their pass defense has been unreal. 4th in yards per pass attempt, 22nd in success rate per dropback, 3rd in effective pass. The BYU defense is sitting at 8th in overall DFEI. So is Oklahoma State going to be able to move the football in this game? Well, here are Alan Bowman numbers. These are almost irrelevant, though, because Alan Bowman is no longer the starting quarterback. We have a quarterback change here at Oklahoma State. But as I said earlier, the story with these Oklahoma State passing numbers that look pretty good on the year, they racked up a bunch of passing numbers early against South Dakota State, Arkansas, and Tulsa. Through those 3 games, they had elite looking passing numbers, we've seen the production really fall off in the last 3 games. I mean, down under 7 yards per pass attempt, 36.7% success rate per dropback is not good. The lack of production spurred, obviously, the quarterback change. The new starting quarterback in Mike Gundy's offense is Garrett Rangel. I'm not going to pretend to know a ton about him. I don't. On the year, he's 11 of 24, 141 yards, touchdown, no interceptions, a 108.9 passer rating. If you have any info, any angles on this kid, drop it in the comments. I know he's been with the team for a couple years, but as far as what we can expect, what his ceiling is, I really don't know. So if you have any angles on this kid, feel free to leave it in the comments. Now, I do have some good news for Garrett Rangel. This BYU pass defense has been elite, but it's not really the pass rush. They're 37th in pressure rate, just 115th in sack rate, so it's not like they're racking up a ton of sacks. And Oklahoma State's offensive line has actually done a really good job in pass protection. They're 3rd in pressure rate, 1st in sack rate, 4th in pass blocking grade. They've given Alan Bowman time to throw all year. So BYU, not a particularly strong pass rush. Oklahoma State should be able to provide Garrett Rangel a clean pocket to throw from. The thing is, even without an elite pass rush, still nobody is able to throw the ball on this BYU defense. This is their numbers on the year, just 4.93 yards per pass attempt, 33.3% success rate per dropback. That's not good. Well, I mean, it's good for BYU. No one's able to throw the ball on this defense, even without an elite pass rush. Now, if you're looking to poke holes in the BYU defense, and brace yourself, this is razor thin. I'm just saying, if you are looking to poke holes in the BYU defense, you can look at their schedule and say, what quarterbacks have they seen? Remember, when they played SMU back in week 2, Jennings was just taking over as the starting quarterback. Preston Stone was a starter to start the season. That offense wasn't looking right for the first couple weeks of the season until they made the switch over to Jennings as the full-time starting quarterback. So there's that game. The Wyoming game, Svoboda's been terrible. He was certainly terrible to start the year. Kansas State, Avery Johnson, not much of a passing threat. I mean, that team just wants to run the ball. Baylor, Sawyer Robertson, I mean, speaks for itself. And then Arizona, Fafita's been awful all year. So you can say, in terms of BYU having a top 10 pass defense, because that's what the numbers indicate, you can say they haven't seen one single elite passing attack at all. Again, I'm admitting that that's pretty thin. Also, it's kind of irrelevant because Oklahoma State with Garrett Rangel is not an elite passing attack anyway, so it kind of doesn't matter. I just thought it was something to point out. That's all I'm saying. If you're looking for another angle against BYU, I guess you can say they've struggled to defend the run at home. In their 3 home games, they're allowing 4.71 yards per carry, 46.4% success rate per rush. Kind of thin, considering they've been elite against the run in their 3 road games. So I don't know how much weight I would take away from that. Also, we have to consider Oklahoma State can't run the ball this year with Ollie Gordon. Just 3.26 yards per carry as a team this season. Success rate per rush under 32%. So look, on paper, Oklahoma State should not be able to do much against this BYU defense here. Now, what about the other side of the ball? Let's talk about the BYU offense. And, I mean, this side of the ball has been surprising as well. Retzi. I love this kid Retzlaff, man. They've been throwing the ball. They're 51st in pass frequency. Look at their passing numbers. 59th in yards per pass attempt, 51st in success rate per dropback, 27th in effective pass with Retzi. The BYU offense sitting at 61st in OFEI. Oklahoma State's defense has definitely been disappointing this year. In terms of yardage, I mean, 114th in yards per play, 119th in yards per carry, 98th in yards per pass attempt. Some advanced metrics indicate it hasn't quite been that bad, but we know this Oklahoma State defense has had its problems this year. Here's Retzlaff numbers on the year. He's been a beast. Over 1,400 yards passing, 8 yards per pass attempt, 14 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. I will say, in terms of Retzlaff, we are seeing the production dip a bit now that he's seeing some more serious defenses. Through the first 3 games of the season, they were averaging almost 290 passing yards per game, 8.93 yards per attempt, 45.4% success rate per dropback, racking up numbers in these first 3 games of the year. In the last 3 games against Kansas State, Baylor, Arizona, starting to see some more serious defenses. The numbers are coming down. Just 205.3 passing yards per game, 7.17 yards per attempt, 42.7% success rate per dropback. It hasn't been bad. I'm just saying he racked up a lot of really nice-looking passing numbers in those first 3 games. Here's the question, though. Do we even consider Oklahoma State to be a serious defense? I mean, all 3 games where they saw a legitimate quarterback, 281.3 passing yards allowed per game, 9.33 yards per attempt, 45.2% success rate per dropback. And I mean, that's Kansas State, Arkansas, West Virginia. These aren't even elite throwers. They're just decent offenses. So this Oklahoma State pass defense has been pretty terrible. Yeah, their numbers in their other 3 games against teams that didn't really have a quarterback, they look better, but all 3 times they've seen a half-decent offense, they've struggled against the pass. pass. So although Retzlaff production has been dipping a bit, on paper he should be able to throw the ball on this Oklahoma State defense. And the crazy part is, if you pull all of Oklahoma State's opponents up, right, and their effective pass ratings, BYU would actually be the strongest passing attack that Oklahoma State's seen so far on paper. So safe to say this should definitely be a tough matchup for Oklahoma State defensively. I mean, they do have a bit of a pass rush, but what's his name? Oliver is still out, their best edge rusher. He's been out since week 2. He's not coming back. Oklahoma State is still 36th in pressure rate without him, but BYU's pass protection has been great. 24th in pressure rate allowed, 22nd in sack rate allowed, 14th in pass blocking grade, and that's huge because Retzlaff, we do see a drop-off in production when he's pressured, pretty significant, actually. So if Oklahoma State's able to generate pressure, they can throw Retzlaff off. But credit to BYU's offensive line. So far, they've done a great job. Now, one thing I will give to Oklahoma State's defense here, I think they will be able to limit the run for BYU. This is not a great rushing team. On the season, their numbers are looking pretty average here. I mean, 4.25 yards per carry. I won't read them off. They're all pretty average. Oklahoma State, in their last 2 games, got the ball run all over them. It's from Kansas State and West Virginia. 2 very dynamic rushing attacks. That's probably 2 top 25 rushing attacks. BYU is most definitely not a top 25 rushing attack. So a little bit of a buy low on Oklahoma State's run defense. I don't think BYU is going to be able to run the ball in this game. But as a whole, on paper, this should be a tough matchup for Oklahoma State to stop Retzlaff from throwing the ball. So where does that leave me in terms of placing a bet? Well, I bet this one already. I took Oklahoma State plus 9.5. I get it. I get why BYU is this heavily favored. On paper, they are most definitely 10 points better than Oklahoma State so far this year. But I trust Mike Gundy, and it reminds me a lot of the game last year where Kansas State looked excellent and Oklahoma State looked terrible. Kansas State on a primetime game just like this one was laying 10.5. Mike Gundy came in with some trick plays, and he beat the shit out of Kansas State in that game. They won handedly. So I trust Mike Gundy as a head coach, especially when his back's against the wall. And basically, I just trust Mike Gundy to win the coaching battle in this one, coming out with a quarterback they're not prepared for. Look, but BYU looks much better than Oklahoma State. If you're tailing, please tail responsibly. I truthfully think Oklahoma State can win this game outright. So Oklahoma State plus 9.5. I have the money line sprinkled as well. Please tail responsibly. Last up, we're going to the Mountain West. We got Fresno State on the road at Nevada here. Wolfpack catching, looks like 3 across the board. There are a couple 3.5s out there if you look. Total sitting at 49.5. Let's take a quick look at the pie charts, and according to the data, action seems to be coming in on the Fresno State side. Over 55% of the tickets and about 70% of the money according to this. But as I always say, take this data with a grain of salt. So let's get into this matchup, and we'll start with the Fresno offense. This is an offense that wants to throw the ball. They want the ball in the hands of Mikey Keene. They're 29th in pass frequency so far this year. Passing numbers on the year look okay. 65th in yards per pass attempt, 60th in success rate per dropback, 54th in effective pass. They don't really have much run support for Mikey Keene here. 104th, 118th, 111th. So like I said, this is an offense that needs to throw the ball to be successful. Mikey Keene, in terms of passing production, has been pretty good. Needs to limit the turnovers a bit, though. Just about 1,600 passing yards on the year, 7.8 yards per attempt, 8 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. If you isolate the Fresno passing numbers to just the last 3 games, it's okay. I mean, it's not great. 262.7 yards per game, 6.8 yards per attempt could be better. 44.2% success rate per dropback is actually pretty good. Now for the good news, if you're Fresno State, you're matched up against the Nevada pass defense that's gotten kind of cooked through the air in their last 2 games. Against Oregon State and San Jose State, 337.5 passing yards allowed per game, 8.05 yards per attempt, 52.9% success rate per dropback is certainly not good. This Nevada defense does not have much of a pass rush, 81st in pressure rate, 121st in sack rate, which is bad news if you're Nevada, because Mikey Keene, when given a clean pocket, can definitely beat you. It's when he receives some pressure, that's when he runs into some problems. See the UNLV game for reference. He was running for his life in that first half. But there is an angle I like for Nevada's defense here. I don't think Fresno State's going to have much run support for Mikey Keene in this one. Now, Nevada has gotten run on in their last few games. They started off the season hot, allowing just 3.7 yards per carry, 38.8% success rate per rush through their first 3 games. In their last 3 games, they've been struggling. 5.1 yards per carry, almost a 50% success rate per rush. But Minnesota, Oregon State's got a great rushing attack this year. San Jose State's got a pretty electric rushing attack. So in their last 4 games, it's 4 games, by the way, I just said 3. So in their last 4 games, they struggled against the run. They've seen 3 really good rushing attacks. Fresno State is most definitely not a good rushing attack. In fact, they're pretty terrible trying to run the ball. Just 3.45 yards per carry as a team this season, 37% success rate per rush. So I do not expect Mikey Keene to have run support in this game. This is a Nevada defense that's been struggling to stop the run. They should finally be playing in a football game where they're not being run on. So I actually like that for Nevada. I mean, no question, Mikey Keene's going to have opportunities to make plays through the air, but I think Nevada limiting the run should force some punts in this one. Now, what about the matchup on the other side? What about the Wolfpack offense? Well, almost the opposite of the Fresno State offense. This offense needs to run the ball. They're 27th in run frequency, and they're damn good at it. 19th in yards per carry as a team this season, 21st in success rate per rush, 36th in effective rush. There you go. Not much of a passing attack, though. 89th, 77th, and 112th. That happens to play directly into the weakness of this Fresno State defense. They've got great numbers against the pass, 7th, 61st, 22nd. Look at Fresno's numbers against the run this year. 76 in yards per carry allowed, 73rd in success rate per rush, 74th in effective rush. So yeah, you take a look at Brendan Lewis' numbers on the season throwing the ball, and they don't exactly fill you with confidence. 997 yards, 7.1 yards per attempt, 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. But keep in mind, Nevada's not really going to be trying to throw the ball in this game. They're going to come out looking to exploit the weakness of Fresno's defense, which is stopping the run. Nevada's passing numbers on the year are okay. I mean, they're not great. 174.7 passing yards per game, 6.9 yards per attempt, 41.6% success rate per dropback. So, I mean, that's not absolutely awful. But like I said, this Fresno State defense has been so good against the pass. They had one bad game in the UNLV game, and honestly, that was Haj Malik Williams' first start. No one knew what to expect. UNLV came out throwing the ball. No one was expecting that. Might have been a little bit of just them getting caught off guard. In their other 5 games, they're holding opponents to just 5 yards per pass attempt, 35.7% success rate per dropback. This is a very good pass defense. But we just got done talking about how this Nevada offense isn't looking to throw the ball. They're looking to run it, and they've been running the shit out of the ball in their last 3 games. Over 7 yards per carry as a team, 287.7 yards per game, 57.9% success rate per rush. Yes, you can point at the 3 defenses. Eastern Washington, that's an FCS program. San Jose State, Oregon State, okay, not the greatest defenses. In fact, those are 3 bad defenses, but Fresno State's defense against the run isn't that great. It's not that much better than these. Now, if you plan on betting Fresno State here, you can point at a couple games from earlier in the season when Nevada saw some tougher defenses, SMU and Minnesota. They averaged just 2.78 yards per carry, 32.8% success rate per rush. So you can point at these 2 games and say, see, when Nevada saw some tough defenses, they couldn't run the ball. But I honestly would push back on that. That was early in the season. Jeff Cho comes in. This is a brand new coaching staff. I mean, they were still getting themselves together. Not to mention, Fresno State against the run is not comparable to SMU and Minnesota. Those 2 teams have much better defensive fronts than Fresno State. So I honestly would push back on that point. I'm not saying these numbers aren't notable at all, but the fact that they were early in the season against 2 defenses that are both better than Fresno, this Nevada rushing attack is coming in hot. Over 7 yards per carry, 280 yards per game in their last 3. I expect them to run the football on a Fresno defensive front that I don't think is very good. Friday night, at home, under the lights, prime time. I think they're going to run the ball on them, and I don't think Fresno can stop them. For the record, Fresno State in their last 2 home games are allowing over 200 rushing yards per game, over 6 yards per carry, 43% success rate per rush. So this Fresno State defense was unable to stop the run in their last 2 road games. And okay, UNLV, that's an electric rushing attack. New Mexico? That's inexcusable, which is why I am on the Wolfpack in this one. I took Nevada plus 3.5. Hopefully you're able to get a 3.5 by the time you're watching this. I think they're live to win this game outright. It's not a huge bet, but I truly think they're going to come out, run the football on Fresno State. Sure, Mikey Keene is going to have opportunities to make throws. I think we could see a pick. I mean, this dude cannot stop throwing interceptions, so I think Nevada can take advantage of that. They're going to run the football, control the pace. Let's do it, Wolfpack. Nevada plus 3.5. If you'd like to see all the bets I'm personally placing and check out the daily bet reports, head over to KyleKirms.com and sign up to Sauce Network Plus. Also, when you sign up, it comes with access to the Discord. Where's my trophy? Oh, here it is. And you get to participate in the weekly betting league. $150 on one of these trophies go to the winner every single week. So if you're interested, head over to the website and sign up. Live show, 4 p.m. Eastern time. We'll go through MLB, college football, maybe some hockey. We'll see. 4 p.m. Eastern time. If you're able to make it, we'd love to see you in the comments. Let's have ourselves a great Friday night. Remember to bet responsibly. Talk to you later.